All right, we're going to move into a little bit of strength training now, and we're going to utilize some bands. And one of the things I love about bands is that number one, they're affordable. They're not very expensive. They usually come in a 3-pack, come with a little door jamb and ankle attachments and the handles, and they're lightweight. They don't take up a lot of room like big equipment, and they travel well. So you really don't have an excuse when you go out of town or you've got something going on. You pack them right in your suitcase and you still have the ability to get that strength training in. So the very first thing we're going to do is a bicep curl. So I'm going to give Nikki, turn the band over to Nikki. She is going to place it in the arch of her foot. She's going to stand her feet shoulder width apart. She's going to have a slight bend in her knee. She's going to pull that belly button into her spine, standing nice and tall. Now, the important thing to remember about a bicep curl is what we're working. We're working this muscle right here. So we want to make sure that Nikki keeps from her shoulder to her elbow almost glued to her side. This is not going to move. The forearm is what's going to be doing all the work. So Nikki is going to take a big deep breath in, and she's going to exhale as she slowly pulls those arms up towards her, hands up towards her shoulders. Nice and slow and controlled, not moving this portion of her body, but just her forearm. Another thing you want to be careful to do is keep the wrists nice and straight. You don't want to break those wrists up at the top of the movement. Okay, so with bands, the great thing about bands is you can change to a band that gives you a little bit more resistance, or you can actually choke down on the band to give yourself a little bit more resistance. So with bands, you want to do the same thing, maybe 8 to 12 repetitions. The last 2 or 3 of those repetitions should be difficult for you. You should be tired and ready to stop. If you can breeze right through them, then it's time to move up in your band. You want to get a little bit more resistance behind you. All right, so now we're going to move to the back side of that arm and work some triceps a little bit. So Nikki is going to go back to that original stance that we talked about. She's going to get her feet shoulder width apart. She's going to have a slight bend in her knee, belly button pulled into her spine, nice and tall. Shoulders are going to stay down and back. And it's the same thing. Again, she's going to glue that arm into her side. The only thing moving is her forearm, and she's bringing it back. Exhaling as she comes back, pausing at the back of this movement. Nice and slow, returning to the beginning. It's all the same thing. She wants to make sure she's keeping those shoulder blades down and back. So we're concentrating on this muscle right here. Same repetitions. You can do 1 to 3 sets of 8 to 12, depending on form. If you start to lose your form, if you try to recruit the shoulders to help, then it's time to take a break. The very next exercise we're going to do is a row. So Nikki is going to come over and pick up the bands. She's going to take that original position we've talked about, shoulder width apart, slight bend in the knee, belly button in. She's going to be nice and tall. She's going to begin to pull those elbows back. So her shoulder blades remain down and back, and she's pinching, almost trying to bring those elbows together behind her, keeping her arms into her sides. So you almost want to scrape your sides with your arms as you slowly bring them back, pause, and slowly return. So big deep breath in and exhale as you bring those handles back and slowly return. That motion is just as important as bringing those back. You're working the muscle in both directions. Same thing with these. You want to do 1 to 3 sets of 8 to 12, depending on the resistance that you have set and your form. Now we're going to work the chest a little bit. So we have a little bit of a different stance here. Nikki is going to get staggered stance now. She's still going to maintain a slight bend in that knee. She's going to pull her belly button into her spine, nice and tall. She's going to bring those elbows up in this position. She's going to take a big deep breath and push her hands forward, squeezing in her chest, slowly back. Now you want to make sure you keep these elbows up, shoulder blades down and back, nice and controlled through the entire motion. Forward squeezing, nice and slow on the return. Great job, Nikki. Thank you. Same thing with repetitions there. 1 to 3 sets of 8 to 12. Now we're going to work the shoulders a little bit. So Nikki is going to put these bands again in the arch of her foot. She's going to stand shoulder width apart. Slight bend in those knees. She's going to pull her belly button into her spine. Standing nice and tall, she's going to bring her arms up into this position. Okay? She's going to take a big deep breath and press those arms up to the sky. Good. Good. Slowly bringing them back down to this position. Maintaining the shoulder blades down and back as much as possible. You don't want to bring those shoulders up to your ears as you come up into that motion. Continuing to keep the belly button pulled to the spine and squeezing the glutes. You want to engage those glutes in these exercises as well.